G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing David Feldman from 3 Owl. He's based in Atlanta in the United States. Thanks for your time today, David.
Hey, good to be on the show.
Let's start with how we know each other. Gabriella from Oscar Hamilton put us in touch. So are they like a PR agency that you use?
Yeah, there's specifically a podcasting group, so they match me up with business podcasts.
Mm-hmm. Great. And tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Sure. I tell people we are at the intersection of design, strategy, and technology. So we do all of that in-house. Very simply, we'll do everything from designing the visual identity of your brand to applying that to a website or app design, and then coding the whole thing and measuring results. We found that doing all of those services in-house really benefits our clients as far as handoffs go and just understanding of how the process works. So we're thinking about the technology as we're doing the designs and as we're building the brand, so a lot doesn't get lost in translation. And ultimately it leads to just greater value products and being able to create measurable results.
How did you start out?
I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, I didn't go out to start a business. I was enjoying doing anything that you could consider digital marketing. So I was on my own building websites, designing logos, writing copy, really just about everything, which I really enjoyed, but obviously that doesn't scale. There was a point where I took the GMAT to go to business school. This was back in 2012, and I had to decide whether I was going to actually apply or stick with my clients. And I couldn't write the email to the few clients I had saying, "Hey, I'm gonna hang up the hat and go to school." So I decided to give it 1 year to see where it would go, and I haven't looked back. So fortunately, started hiring more people with the skill sets that I had, people who knew a lot more than I did, and have grown it from there. But ultimately, the core of the business is the same. I was connecting design and technology and measuring results. We're just doing it at a much greater scale now.
So that was 2012 when you started. How old were you?
I was 26, which sounds so young now that I say it out loud.
Yeah. Do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business over the last decade?
Sure. Yeah, we hit 7 figures back in 2019 and have experienced 35% compound annual growth for 6 years now. So we're looking at a 50% growth year next year, which is really exciting. So it's been a good run, and I've realized the more clients you have that are happy, it's really like compounding interest. That more and more people are talking about you. So we've really seen that happen, especially this year. Just a lot of goodwill out there, a lot of good relationships, and people saying, "Hey, check these guys out. They can really accomplish what you need." So it's really set us up for a really strong 2023. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, all the things. But hopefully it's as good as we're projecting it'll be.
Well, David, that's phenomenal growth over 10 years. Congratulations. That's really, really good.
Thank you.
How many full-time equivalent team members do you have now? So you started on your own, but how many people on average doing a 40-hour week?
So we're full-time equivalent. We're close to 20. We've got a balance of full-timers and full-time contractors. The reason I have the full-time contractors is just for that built-in elasticity, which that became my model during the pandemic, where I really restructured the company. We are in a place now where everybody working on our team and all of our contractors are all very senior level employees. So it's one way we differentiate, is that anybody who touches your project is going to be 10 plus years of experience in the field. And our clients really feel that. They never get staffed with a junior. And look, I'm all about growing junior talent. I teach for free at schools and lecture, um, but I believe a company as small as mine can't be a place for juniors to come in and learn. It makes a lot more sense with a larger company. I had superstars in training for years, and it was so challenging to train them and also get them billable. So at this point, 20 equivalent full-time employees, all senior level folks producing really great work.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
Oh man. Um, I, I'm not there yet. I have such a big vision that, I'm happy with where we're at, but I'm never going to say, hey, I succeeded and hang up the hat. But I think a moment of success was about a year ago. We were going through a evaluation process. We were looking at bringing on a strategic investor. And I remembered when I incorporated my business, the attorney was like, "Hey, like you're a small business. You got started a couple of years ago. Let's put your value at zero." So I did. And last year, having a CFO go through our numbers and actually give us a valuation, and a seven-figure one at that, felt amazing because I just realized I had created something of value. And it wasn't really about getting paid. It was about somebody who is an industry professional came through and said, "You have built something that has great value." And that meant the world to me, just knowing that and getting that validation.
And what does success look like to you?
One is that I don't get bored. I didn't sign up to be an entrepreneur to kick back and let other folks do the work or rinse and repeat every year. So success one is things changing and growing and staying interesting, getting better projects that make bigger impacts. It's also seeing my team members grow. I like to think that having a small company like ours doing big work, that the people who work with me can tell me I'm doing the kind of work I never dreamed of doing at this point in my career. Success looks like our clients coming back to us every year and re-signing contracts. Just the simple things, just the thank yous and clients saying, "Hey, I had a lot of fun working on this project. I didn't know it could be fun." And also, success looks like flexibility. I've got a daughter who's a year and a half, and just getting to spend time with her and not be tied to the office and have some flexibility. I think that part really matters to all of our teammates. Is where we've got some people in Atlanta, other people all over the world, and just that hybrid work environment where there's just a lot of flexibility built in. That's success to me. So I think it's a lot of things, but ultimately, it's my company, and my goal is to actually build my dream job. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm doing something wrong.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business? Perfect question for you.
Talk about it a lot. Um, Use LinkedIn to talk about your successes. Don't be bashful about it. Find the right tone when you do talk about it. Don't brag. Always be humble. But I've had people come to me saying, "Oh my God, your business is everywhere," and I realize what they mean by that is I'm just telling stories of what's going on in the business. So I really think what's important, people, when you start getting those buying signals from people, especially as a smaller, fast growing business, they're making sure that you're stable, that if they give you the job, that you can complete it. So I would say marketing it, especially in the B2B space, it's like very grassroots. Just talk about it, whether that's through email marketing, through LinkedIn, and really just good old pounding the pavement. Take people out to coffee, reach out to people, get on Zoom calls, and just ask them questions. Tell them what you're doing, find out what they're doing. That can go a long way because that person you talk to, maybe they might not have a job for you, but they probably know somebody who does. So just staying in front of people makes all the difference.
And how did you fund the business?
It's been bootstrapped, man, from day one. There were definitely times my employees were making more than I was, and I have to keep asking myself, why am I doing this? It's good to be on the other side of that. The first external investment we took was with this strategic partner, and the deal was never about the money. I actually asked him last week, I'm like, what do we do with this money? Like, how would you recommend we spend it? So ultimately, it's always been organic growth. And like I said, having that full-time contractor model really helps just with scaling correctly when we need to and being able to pull back when we need to.
So just the one investor in so far, the strategic one you mentioned?
Yes, and it's a minority investment. It's a cool thing actually. It's so I wrote a book during the pandemic, as you do, called Small by Design, an entrepreneur's guide for growing big while staying small. I interviewed a lot of business owners outside of the marketing field. So it's not a marketing field book. It's truly a B2B service industry how-to book. I was connected to this investor who had grown and sold the largest marketing company in San Francisco. And after the sale, he started providing seed money and investments into boutique agencies like mine because he really likes the idea of small boutique and the power of having a lot of small agencies working together. So he made a lot of sense as an interview for my book, ended up really liking him and his values. So that's really where the investment came from. And I wasn't looking for an investor by any means, but just having that kind of guy who is sitting on your board and also being connected to a dozen other agencies who all have similar values, who refer each other work. I've learned a ton. So it's truly a much more strategic role he has. I called him today asking him, a question about a tough situation I was in. I said, look, I feel like I can just like pull out the bat signal and talk to you because that's really what it's been like.
Yep.
Just someone who's got way more experience under their belt, but totally gets what I'm doing. So again, not so much about the external investment, much more about investing into the relationship.
Yeah, sounds like smart money you've taken on.
Thank you.
If you were a startup today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Yeah, I would. I've thought about what it would look like to sell my company, and I would just rebuild the company. So this is all I know. However, we've helped startups before, and I've seen our other clients, and I I would absolutely do this all over again. Maybe not specifically the exact offerings we have, but I would certainly be in the B2B service space and content. It might be more content creation mixed with digital and technology. I've thought about this before, actually. I think I would do a little bit more on the extended reality, augmented reality, AI side, offering those kind of services. Because I think if I had the seed money, I could probably just bring on those kind of people. But yeah, I'd absolutely stay in the space, want to work with similar clients, just provide maybe a slightly different service, one that requires a little bit more capital, potentially more equipment. But yeah, I would.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Yeah, that one's easy. March 13th, 2020. I don't know if you remember that day.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, Friday the 13th.
COVID, yeah.
Oh man, so I was just getting all the push notifications of like the NBA shutting down, restaurants shutting down. Like half of our clients, like our clientele is very much in the service industry. So it was restaurants, hotels, music venues. I was just like, am I gonna be around? Am I gonna be around in a couple of weeks?
Yeah.
So I just looked at my numbers and what we had left in the bank, and at that point, I realized I have to make some major changes very fast in order just to open up our runway. So I had to lay off. I laid off every junior employee that I had. Lean more on our full time contractors, lean more on myself and the senior folks that we had. It was really in Atlanta, me and my creative director that were left. So we took that time to rebuild the business. Like one thing that's hard about growing quickly when you're a really young business owner is that you sometimes make decisions that create momentum in the wrong direction. And we were hiring people that ended up not being aligned with our values. So we were in a fortunate position where we, in the end, did not lose any clients, but were able to really restart. So we reworked our values and kind of came up with this 3-year plan around values first, then our systems, then growth. So we're in growth now. But in that moment, I remember that night just trying to write out every configuration of my company that could work that would buy us more runway than 6 weeks, and finally realizing what I had to do. So that was truly the inflection point, where I went from the business really running me to me also running the business. So I'll never forget that. I mean, that really inspired writing the book and everything that I have done since that moment.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
I think we've gotten really good at building systems, which we didn't have a few years ago. So, ultimately my dream was I could log into one place and have a pulse of the business. All the tasks that are open, all the timelines, how clients are interacting with us, how our teams are interacting. So we've built out a project management tool. We use Monday.com, but we've got all of our client tickets in one place, all of our design tickets, development tickets, they're all linked. I can scroll through the feed and just kind of like scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, but it's all 3 Owl. So I can see all the work that was done, how clients are reacting, and I can get like a really nice pulse of what's happening in my business. So we have to work really hard on that. But I kept telling my team, if we can't create replicable systems, we're not going to grow. So we just hired a senior level project manager to come in and oversee that even more. So when it comes to building that foundation of really strong systems, we have to work really hard on that because we just didn't have it. But now we have a project manager who can come in and inherit that rather than have to build it from the ground up.
Yep. Yeah, so important, particularly with scale, getting those systems right, and also having someone who owns the systems rollout throughout your business so you can focus on marketing and management.
Oh, absolutely.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
I think the hardest parts are, I think when you're small, you have to get the work done and you can't ever appear small. I think there's less lenience on appearing small. So I think some of the hardest times have just been unexpectedly having to put in a lot more hours just to fill in the gaps and make sure everything is delivered neatly. So that part's been hard. Um, I think, like I said, years earlier, the finances were really tough. We were making good money at one point, but I was not getting paid well. But I think really the hardest parts when you're a business owner of a fast growing business, like the relationships really matter. And even if you do mess something up and the client doesn't know it, I'll be the first one to come in and plug in the gaps. And my wife knows that. I'm like, hey, gonna work most of the day on Saturdays just to make sure this is all cleaned up. But I'm grateful to be able to even have that. That just means we've got work and we're growing. And if our clients don't see it, that's okay. And in times like that is when I talk to my team and tell them something went wrong internally. We're fortunate that the clients don't know about it, but this is how we grow. So we've definitely grown from those moments where I like my job the least. And that goes to anybody in the company.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
I just love that I can dream, just come up with ideas and get them executed. Like we started building some of our own technology that we're using for pitching clients, which has gone really well, which was so exciting to build that and see how it comes to fruition. Like we've got a lot of internal tech initiatives that are setting us apart, and I just love that I can come up with stuff. We're not scared to fail fast, try stuff out. Our team is nimble. And that part's really, really fun. Getting to write a book and brand it the same way my company's branded and make that a part of our ethos. So I just love that I'm surrounded by really smart people who can actually execute on stuff and get excited. So when I have an idea or see something that I like, I can just try it out and put it out there, and that just keeps me going because every year the business feels new and exciting. And it's one thing I told the investor when we were considering working together is I really worry about a rinse and repeat kind of year. So things got to stay interesting. And ultimately that really just comes from the relationships and who you meet and who can set you on a different trajectory.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Um, Realizing that we're creating a product and it's not just a service. And there's a lot there, right? Those are the brand workshops that we do that have what I believe is a lot of IP. These are the products that we are building, the systems that we're creating. Just realizing that what we're creating is something that is an ownable system versus just a bunch of people coming together and putting out a website or putting out a logo. That's why people keep coming back to us is there's a culture we've created, there's systems we've created, there's products we've created. So really that shift of just a collection of people putting out work to something greater than that. That people will talk about, our clients will recognize the culture of our agency. And that's really important too, is that people do view us as an entity. They're not just a collection of people. And that's really important. It's not just this is the David Feldman show. They talk about our other employees, and we'll talk about how amazing our development project manager is or how awesome our creative director is. So that's been a huge shift. It's not all just on me. It's around, the people who I hire are a reflection of me, but it's been really nice that it's not just been how's David doing today.
Yep. The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
I think developing your own systems and consistency. I think everyone is different, but I think just developing really good habits. It is so easy to just go off the rails and not be efficient. So I try to really structure my days. There's that danger, and I really try to avoid that, especially before I started growing a family. Of, oh, you know what, I'm going to work a few hours in the morning and then go putz around and get stuff done at night. So I think just the discipline of having a space where you work, having a space where you play, trying to create as many systems as you can for yourself, especially when you're a lot smaller. It's easy to be up, working in your bed at 2 a.m. And I, from a very young age in my business, really tried to separate all of those, because then everything overlaps too much and it just gets too muddy. So to the best of your ability, try to separate your job from your personal life. You can't do it as a business owner, but if you're thoughtful about it, you can create as much of a boundary as you possibly can.
Jump over to growasmallbusiness.com and leave your details to get a short 2-minute email I send on Fridays to help small business owners like you become better leaders. I include some reading or professional development resources I've discovered in the last week. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah, I think the person I want to talk about on my team, we initially hired as a virtual assistant, and she lives in the Philippines. And I hired her because I heard of a lot of people, and I'm in an entrepreneurs group called EO. I know they have chapters in Australia.
Yeah, Entrepreneurs Organization, EO.
Yeah. It's a global organization, but I heard people in my chapter and just in like chapter-wide meetings talking about their virtual assistants. This was, during the beginnings of the pandemic. So I thought, great, like I should get one. They're not expensive. I don't really know what I'm going to get out of it. So we used a headhunter, interviewed a bunch of people, found a woman in the Philippines who has perfect English, works Eastern Standard Time, was asking for her hourly was so low, but it was normal for her. But she had web development experience, had worked at Accenture in the Philippines, and it was just really her dream was to have a stable job. And I very quickly realized that this woman who was never paid more than what is well below minimum wage in the United States had a lot of talent. So we've spent the last 3 years growing her to the point where she's client facing and she's our development account manager. We pay her really, really well, to the point where she's able to send her sister to school. And our clients, she's most often the person our clients rave about, and I will brag about and say, we've grown her and we have built up her confidence. We recently paid for her to go to a public speaking course. Like, we're really investing in her. And I've seen her blossom, and there's such a candor from her where she'll tell me, David, I can't believe I'm doing this with my job, and I can't believe I'm having these conversations and how much more confident I am. So you never know where you'll find talent. So she's just been this awesome success story. I don't know exactly how to replicate that. We got lucky with her.
Yep.
Um, but it was one of those low risk situations. But as soon as I saw the talent, I started investing, and it's paid back so much. And just seeing her growth it's been one of my favorite parts of my job.
That's great. I've got 6 team members now in the Philippines. The longest serving has been with me 7 years, I think. And it's phenomenal. I've had all 6. No one's left. I've not had to ask anyone leave. It's just it's a wonderful thing on many fronts. I mean, I think the population, 87% of the population is Catholic, so there's a strong work ethic there, a lot of Catholic guilt. And English is very good. Obviously, after World War II, the American occupation, their English is excellent, and they're all university educated. It's a wonderful
Correct.
resource. And then some business owners have a problem with the low amount they're paid, but it's just arbitrage. The cost of living in that country is much, much lower. And everyone wins. They're getting a much better lifestyle, investing in their family, their education, as you mentioned as well. It's wonderful. I've also got one in Pakistan and one in India as well, and Sri Lanka's just starting very soon. So it's a great model, very scalable if you get the right people. I mean, it doesn't matter if they're onshore or offshore. It still comes back to what I believe the most important thing a manager does, which is recruitment, so getting that right. So it can be replicated, I think. I've got 6 great team members in the Philippines. You just got to build out that process and go through it again.
Yeah, that's right, and it's true. Like I was so surprised by the pay, but I made sure I looked at average cost of living, healthcare costs, food costs, just so one to make sure I was not just grossly underpaying somebody. And I know now what I'm paying her now, she's putting money aside and investing in education of others. So it's nice to be able to make such a deep impact on somebody's life without having to spend an exorbitant amount, but for her, it makes the world of a difference. So it feels good to be able to be that generous and make that much of an impact.
Yeah, great. What are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Um, Number one, just be real, like be as transparent as you can be with your company. So I don't sugarcoat things with my team. We do profit sharing, so they have an idea of the health of our business. So just that openness is really important. Another quote we live by is throw solutions before you throw stones.
Yeah, like
So
it. Mm.
there's just I say that because I had a lot of team members who would throw the stones, and it just creates a very negative environment. So I tell my team, look, we're all really smart. We are all professionals at this. Someone else has come up with a solution before and figured this out. So before you come complaining to me with something, come to me with a solution. We'll figure it out together. We'll grow from it and just move forward. So that's really helped with our culture. We're optimistic, but we say that our rosy colored glasses are a prescription. So we have a lot of optimism, and that's because we know we do good work. But we also are very discerning. And another one is just celebrating the wins. Like I know way too many companies will bring up the losses or will call you in when you did something wrong. But I see all of our teammates celebrating each other on our weekly calls. Our account manager will call out our dev account manager and talk about what an awesome job she did on a call last week. And those little things go really far. So I think the recognition is really key because you'll see it. I'm not the only one doing the recognition. I love when my teammates recognize other teammates. And on the occasion I get some recognition. It feels good. So I think all of those parts, those are all listed on our website. But when we spent all that time focusing on our values and we rebuilt the company, we really, really stuck to them. It also makes a huge, as you're talking about recruitment, we talk about our values during the recruitment process, and our teammates talk about them in interviews too, because we really do live by those.
Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Um, As far as like work-life balance,
Yeah.
um, I think it's just trying to work 40 hours from the get-go makes a big difference. So that's where I start, is making sure I kind of plan my week for 40 hours. Um, I keep my mornings open and don't have meetings in the mornings. I don't have meetings on Wednesdays, and then Fridays we have heads down time, or no contact time from 9 to noon. So a lot of people will do educational, will do like education, or um, we'll spend time reading during that time. So I think setting yourself up to work a normal schedule and knowing if you're working too many hours, it's probably time to hire or reevaluate your week. So I really try to work 40 to 50 hours. And if I'm not, either A, we're growing and that's great. It's time to bring on more people, or B, I am being inefficient. So that's really important. Like when we fired a lot of people during the pandemic, I told my wife it's going to be a very busy time for me, but I knew that was very much in the short term. So don't celebrate uh, working too hard. That lifestyle is not something to be proud of. I
Not
used to do
sustainable.
that.
Hmm.
It's not sustainable. Don't be proud of the grind.
No, I
Um,
agree. I totally disagree with Gary Vaynerchuk's hustle mentality. It's just bullshit. I used to work 100-hour weeks when I first started my first two companies in '99, and it's just stupid.
yeah, it is, and you're going to grow a lot slower doing that.
Yeah, because you've got a faulty business model. It's not resourced properly.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. And you might not really get to the other side if you keep working that hard, because you just need that downtime to, and I've learned this about myself. If I have time to just think and experiment and play and browse the internet and just spend time thinking, if my shower thoughts are around dreaming big for the company versus trying to like get away from the 100-hour week,
Yeah.
um, that's really where the magic happens. So you got to set yourself up for that. One reason we're bringing on the senior level project managers for me to open up even more time for myself, uh, to focus on the visionary part of the business. It's not really scheduled.
Yep. How much professional development have you invested in yourself?
Early on, I did a lot of continued education. So that was web design, web development classes, photography classes, Photoshop classes. A lot of my development now is through EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. So there are a lot of events, a lot of learnings. I meet with an accountability group of other business owners every month for 4 hours, and we do retreats together. So I've learned a ton there. So really, the professional development now has been much more around immersing myself into a community of entrepreneurs and being very open and sharing our experiences. I found that if you can find people who are willing to open up about their business and how they run it, and don't treat it like a black box, you'll learn a lot, and you can also teach them a lot.
Have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
I certainly have. I've like I said, the investor I brought in is kind of that next level mentor who is also invested into the business. But I've certainly sought that out, and they've changed over time. I had a mentor very early on who now comes to me with questions because his business has not really grown, from 8, 9 years ago. Other folks who worked at large ad agencies sharing their experiences with me. So I definitely have that handful of people who I like to come to with questions. And it's good to have them across, not all business owners, not all marketing folks. My first boss, who's just serial entrepreneur, was in the medical field, and I learned a lot about how to build a team working with him and him mentoring me. So I love being a mentor to people and vice versa. And people who are mentoring me, I'm very open about it to them. Very gracious that they help me there. I actually used to have an advisors page on my old website when we were smaller that had literally all the advisors we had, because I believed in mentorship so much. I think now we're like really focused on this investment group as the primary mentor. And I love to give back. Like I said, I lecture at my alma mater at the business school on the regular. I have folks who who I mentor, and I'm on their official mentorship board. So yeah, I'm all about that.
You mentioned you've got a board. Is it just you and your strategic investor on that board?
Yeah, yeah. So the board is per our documents.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the two of us, but really just having somebody who is actually invested in the business as a mentor makes a really big difference.
All right, David, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
It I think the hardest thing is the unknown and not knowing what the other side's going to look like. So much of it is just having that belief in yourself from very early on, because there are no guarantees, and there's times where it might look dark on the other side. So it's so easy looking back in hindsight. It's all of it. I have a very linear story, but you can't tell it's linear as it's happening. So that part's hard, and it's also hard when you don't have any historical data to look at. Like at year 3, looking at the previous year's Q2 we were just too new to know if we were having a good quarter or not. So as you grow, it really helps to look at historical numbers and know, just based on your own experiences, how to predict what's going to happen. But God, those first few years when everything's so up and down, it's hard to find those predictors.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
So there's two. On the biography side, Bob Iger's Ride of a Lifetime uh, really inspired me just around the importance of building great relationships with people and also understanding how to build relationships with people and how that can help your business. I appreciated reading a book from a kind CEO who had tremendous emotional intelligence and empathy. And then much more on the functional side is the book Traction.
I've just finished
Which,
that. Gino Wickman from
oh,
EOS.
yeah, yeah, it's awesome. I mean, he's built an entire ecosystem around Traction.
Yeah.
But when I talked about being a visionary, it wasn't me, puffing up my chest. It's using Gino Wickman's term of visionary paired with an integrator. So we actually all read that book as a leadership team, which was really awesome because we had, a lot of things we agreed on, and people started to have a better understanding of where I fit into the company and where they fit in. So Traction, I recommend that to any business owner. And I've had a couple of interesting conversations with people who have recently sold their businesses. And they said, by the way, running our business on Traction increased the multiple because they saw how replicable our systems were, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's great that you just finished it. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's very similar to a lot of my teachings and principles and philosophies. There's a few things I didn't agree with, but not that many. I think it's really well done. Have you read his other book, Rocket Fuel?
No, I haven't, but with us hiring a project manager who is going to be our integrator, I feel like that is very much the next book to read.
Yeah, that hones in on one of the key messages in Traction, as you said. The visionary needs an integrator. So the Rocket Fuel may help you bringing on that person who is in the integrator role, because there's some good exercises there and tools you can use from the book to help make sure you identify the right integrator that you put in. And as you know, the right people in the right seats, as Jim Collins says, makes all the difference for your growth.
Yeah, 100%.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
My podcast listening is more for entertainment than it is for professional development. So I'm going to have to say no to that one.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
I think Traction is certainly a tool. So I would say use Traction, read the book, see what you can implement from there. There's going to be learnings you have from day one around how to better structure, for example, just how to structure your weekly kickoff meeting. That alone can save you a lot of hassle and get you more efficient. So yeah, the entrepreneurial operating system is a great tool if you're not using it.
Final and my favorite question: what would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
I would say, David, you are better at this than you realize. You are good with people. You've got good values. You work harder than you realize, and just believe in yourself. Because you're gonna be okay on the other side. Um, and that imposter syndrome you're feeling, everybody feels it, no matter how big you get. So that imposter syndrome is really just you continue to push yourself. But you're better than you think you are.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for your time today, David. I really enjoyed the chat. Congratulations on the growth. Starting out on your own now, around 20 team members. Sounds like you're loving what you're doing, and you've got a strategic investor in with some smart money there. Very wise on your own part. So congratulations, and thanks for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. This was great.
And for our audience, we'd greatly appreciate a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. More reviews means we bubble up higher in iTunes, etc. So more business owners looking for podcast help with their growth will find us.